Hello, Instagram Live. Here we go again. Lots of your questions coming into my DM, so I've just compiled them all together to answer them for you. So whether you're here to have your question answered or you're here to listen to what other people have questions for, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. You might think, yeah, Rent2Rent's fairly easy. And then you hear some of the questions that come up and some of the answers. And you're like, I didn't think of that. So hopefully this is beneficial to all. But appreciate you guys joining. We'll give it just a few more seconds, let other people join in. And then I'll just get straight into the questions that you guys have been asking. But there's some good questions in here. And I think most of you could probably relate to them, right? The only downside to doing a live at this time of the morning is most people are at work, but I can't wait until this list. We're up to 35 questions. So I doubt I will get through them all. Alexa, set a 20-minute timer.
20 minutes.
We'll go for 20 minutes and see if we can get through them all, right? So first one is Callum. I've got about £3,000 saved. Is that actually enough to start Rent2Rent, or am I wasting my time? It depends. It does depend. If you want a mentorship, then you might struggle to find a mentorship cheaper than £3,000, a good mentorship. So make sure you do your due diligence on that. Or find an online course for a lot cheaper, or go to kennypittman.com, join my 6-week challenge. That's £497. That gives you everything you need. That is group mentoring, but I keep it very valuable. If you followed me for enough, you'd probably trust me when I say I do deliver. I do deliver. And you'll learn so much inside 6 weeks to feel competent enough to go out on your own. So that's one way of doing it. And then that leaves you with £2,500 to get the compliance up together. Compliance will be about £400. So then that leaves you with just over £2,000. So you might struggle to take on a property. You're looking at first month's rent, a possible deposit, even though we can negotiate that off. So that is tight funds, £3,000. To learning how to do this, to taking on your first property, £3,000 is pushing it. But there are ways. You could do deal sourcing, but you still know how to do deal sourcing. And it's not just learning deal sourcing. It's you need to learn how to stack deals, service accommodation deals, HMO deals, social housing deals. So £3,000 is tight, mate. I'm going to say it is too low of a budget to be successful in this game. So my story was I paid a mentor £3,500 for a 3-month mentorship coming up 6 years ago for one strategy. And then fast forward 83 days, I secured 3 HMOs, profiting £2,400 a month. I needed £11,000 to take on those deals. So if I only had £3,000, I could have still made it. I would have sold the deals. Somebody else would have taken them on. So you can do it. I would say that is the absolute minimum, and you'd have to go into deal sourcing. You'd struggle to take on your first property. Cool. Hope that answered your question, Callum. Aisha, what's the real difference between HMO and service accommodation in terms of stress and time and involvement? Good question. They're not too dissimilar. HMO, once tenants have moved in. So let me go through setup, right? And then I'll go through management. So a setup of a HMO is most HMO these are student properties, right? So they mainly come furnished. They've got a bed, they've got bedside tables, they've got a wardrobe and a desk and a student chair in every room. You are very unlikely to have to furnish this place. You just need to make it look like a home, which might set you back £500 in terms of bedding kits and paint for feature walls and stuff like that, and maybe a bit of refurb. All right, so it might take you 4 days to set up and kind of dress a HMO. Then you've got to onboard tenants, right? And then fast forward moving tenants in. Once the 3-week kind of teething issues have passed, they're fairly settled. It is quite passive. You're going to come across like things where tenants complain about the washing machine, or, this person next door plays the TV loud until 11 o'clock at night. You're going to get stuff like that, but it's not too hands-on. It's just mainly WhatsApp, right? but you can systemize that. So that's the setup of HMO. With service accommodation, you're going to take on pretty much an unfurnished house. It takes at least 3 weeks to kit out a good service accommodation. It is a lot more expensive. It costs at least £3,000 to furnish to the good spec. And it's first time, right? So it seems stressful. You don't know what to buy. You don't know how to furnish it. ChatGPT is ace for this, where you can just take a picture of the room and be like, I'm really struggling for inspiration. This is my target market. I want to target contractors or tourists. This is a room. Show me, here's my budget. What can I do in this room? It needs to look like an Airbnb. Boom. And it would just give you inspiration. So if you're anything like me, I really struggle to see an end product. Hence ChatGPT is epic for that. Right. So that's the main difference. And once a service accommodation is up and running, you have guest management, you have pricing management, pricing optimization, calendar management, dealing with guests, dealing with contractors. It's a lot more hands-on, but the cash flow is more. So it depends. They're both epic. They both have their pros and cons. I wouldn't look at you do need to look at that, to be fair. It needs to work with your lifestyle and your location. And I could talk, we're only on question 2. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, I would say service accommodation is more stress and time involved than HMO. HMO is a lot more time freedom, a lot less stress, but tenants have more rights, which could add more stress. So you have to tighten the braces on the front end with referencing. Question 3 from Tom. How many landlords do you typically have to speak to before you land your first deal? So dude, it is pure luck. It is pure luck. The best analogy I've come up to date is this is like hitting a 180 on a dartboard. You know it's not impossible. You know it's quite hard. It might be the first time you've ever picked up a dart and thrown it at a dartboard. And you're absolutely dreadful, so it might take you more attempts. And then you start getting into the swing of things. And then when you do hit the 180, you're absolutely buzzing. But who says you might hit it on the first attempt, or the second, or the fifth, right? Who knows? You might talk to a landlord. So Max, who's watching live, he joined the 6-week challenge. 8 days in, he secured his first deal. I know he got lucky. He knows he got lucky. He just picked up the phone. You have to be in the right place, at the right time, making the right offer to the right landlord. He hit his 180 on his 8th attempt. All right, so it is pure luck. You just have to be doing the right things consistently because it's time in the market as well. Daniel, is deal sourcing just packaging rubbish deals for investors, or can it actually be done ethically? Yeah, so I was talking to one of my students. He's found a deal sourcer. Stew Dog, I know he got lucky too. Yeah, it was a good deal. Very, very good find. So, is deal sourcing just packaging rubbish deals? So I was talking to Callum, one of my students, yesterday, and he's come across what seems a deal sourcer on Gumtree. So I said to Callum, has he sent you the investor pack? He was like, no, should I ask? And I was like, yeah. And he said, no, it's down to you to do the due diligence. And I'm like, he hasn't even got an investor pack. Boom, gone. Not even on my radar. Like, an absolute write-off. If you are deal sourcing and you cannot be bothered to create a deal sourcing pack, then you're not a deal sourcer. You're a one-hit wonder. Don't take them seriously. If you ask for a deal sourcing pack and they fail to produce one, boom, gone. Speak to me. I'll put you in touch with a proper deal sourcer who would take themselves seriously. You know, you got the Fontaine brothers. They're proper deal sourcers. If you ask them for a deal sourcing pack, they'll be like, yeah, here's a Google Drive. Go and download all of them. Right? Again, the call to action would be in the deal sourcing pack. If I have a mentee who's learning deal sourcing, that's the first thing they send out. All they have to do is produce that deal sourcing pack. It makes you look more professional. You're building a brand. You're building a reputation. You're building an investor list. This has to be a sustainable business. On Gumtree, to reply to my student who's in the market to buy a deal, to say, no, it's down to you to do it. Idiot. Prior, if I work full time, which model is more realistic to start with, HMO or SA? You can do both. You can absolutely do both. Knowing what I know now. But what I did is I started with HMO because I needed stable income to replace my stable income. Right? So HMO is good for that, and you can have a wider radius. You can have quite a wide radius. Like I had a 3-hour radius. With service accommodation, I would say you really want to start with an hour and a half max radius. But they're both brilliant. The more realistic one, it seems in your head to start with HMO. But just from knowing what I know, you can do both. Because I've got students doing both. And doing very well as well. Ben, how do you convince a landlord to let you use their property for Airbnb without them thinking you're running a party house? So flip that, never convince. You just have to solve a problem they've got. If they haven't got a problem, then you'll never convince them. You might do, but in their head they'll be like, this sounds like it could solve this problem. And then they will. You don't convince them. If they're slightly against it, you can't convince them. You'll be wasting your time. You need to speak to the right landlord who has a problem, or they're slightly entrepreneurial themselves, or they've been burnt by tenants and they don't want to go down that again. That's it, really. Those 3 types of landlords. Marcus, at what point does it make sense to quit your job? Deal sourcing, HMO or SA? It depends what job you're in. So for me, I was in a very stable, long-term job. You know, people literally joined this as an apprentice and would stay there for 67 years. It was a very good factory. And yeah, a lot of people on that trip, right? But for me, I was taking home about 2,700 a month from my job. So I wanted to get to £5,000 profit per month and get past the first year's break clause. So I had the properties for another year. Then I left. Then I actually dropped down to part-time, down to 2 days a week. Then I left. But I've had students that joined and then quit 2 weeks later to go all in on this. So it completely depends on your expenses. Do you have kids? Do you have a mortgage? It's not something I could just say, yeah, you get to this amount and you quit. It's solely your responsibility to look at your expenses. And then just because you match them, you shouldn't quit. It should be create the sustainable business or see sustainability within your business. Like, yeah, you've had them a year. You get past the break clause. Now I've got them for another year. Okay, I'm making $4,000 a month. I only need 2. Cool. I've got 90 days of rainy days in my business account. Let's drop down to part-time. Like, yeah, play it sensibly, guys. Don't just up and quit. Or if you have a very easily found job somewhere else, then up and quit. But just make sure you can cover your expenses. Ellie, do I need a limited company to start, or can I do my first deal in my own name? No, limited company, because it's a company-let management contract. It's not a landlord to tenant AST contract. It's a business to landlord contract. So no, you cannot do it in your own name. That is illegal subletting. All right? And you won't get insurance either. Ryan, what's the biggest mistake you see beginners make when viewing HMO properties? They don't take good pictures. They don't take good videos, especially on wider angle, or they keep it on the normal angle and they're moving too quick. They send me the video and like, Kenny, what do you think of this? And I get dizzy just watching the video. It's quite simple. You just need to go on the wide angle lens, walk into the middle of the room, do a very slow pan around, and then that's it. And then do that in the next room, the next room. Because let's say this property is 2 hours away. I learnt this. This is from my mistake, right? I viewed a property and then I did exactly what I say don't do. And I got home and I'm stacking the deal and I'm like, I cannot even see the freaking condition of anything. What a terrible video. So I had to arrange for a second viewing because they accepted my offer, and I'm stressing, like, I cannot see the freaking condition. I know it was in terrible condition. So yeah, you have to get a good video, because when you're stacking the deal or you have the offer accepted, you want to watch it back and be like, okay, I need curtain poles. I can see there's not even thumb turn locks on the doors, so I'm going to have to get them. But if you're racing around, rubbish videos. Biggest mistake. The most common mistake, not the biggest mistake, when viewing. You can't really make a big mistake when viewing. Sophie, how do you analyse whether a service accommodation deal will actually cash flow before you take it on? Yeah, so it's just looking at the data in the market, going on Airbnb, trying to find comparables. So if you're making an offer on a 3-bed house and it's semi-detached, try and find a 3-bed house semi-detached within a 1 mile radius. Right? If you can't, then look at 2 beds. If you literally cannot find any 3 beds, then compare your offer to 2 beds and maybe go up slightly, only slightly. Like £25 on a nightly rate for a 3-bed extra, right? But you've got tools like Property Market Intel. That's, I think, £34 a month. That's a pretty good tool, but we don't want to rely on it because that takes estimates from Airbnb listings and Price Labs. But yeah, it's all based on data and running it through a calculator and being conservative as well, right? It's a lot to it, actually. So my students have to fill out, I think it's a 3 or 4 page document to then send it to me, to have me review it and be like, yeah, this looks like a good deal. Or actually, no, I found this. What do you think of this? I'm not so sure on this. Maybe you need to review the offer, look for more comparables. So it's quite an in-depth kind of due diligence process. Jamal, Alexa, how long left on timer?
You have 4 minutes.
4 minutes. We're on question 11. Right. Jamal, how long did it take you personally to go from 0 to your first deal? 83 days. What slowed you down the most? My mindset. Right. Get over yourself. Get over your limiting beliefs. Just trust the process. This path exists. I didn't recreate the wheel. I just walked the existing path and got deals. As long as you can solve a landlord's problems, you'll get a deal, whether you're brand new with 0 experience. I made it happen. My students make it happen. Luke, if a landlord says no to Rent2Rent, do you push back or just move on? No. Pitch management. They don't want to pay the first month's rent to estate agents. That might cost them $2,500 to find a tenant. So you take it on. If they don't accept your offer, just say, okay, do you want me to manage it? There would be no upfront fee. I just manage it for you. And you could manage it, okay, do you want me to find tenants? So for HMO example, do you want me to find the tenants? I would run all the referencing. It would just be £300 per tenant. That would be cheaper than the estate agent. You do a better job. You accommodate all the viewings, you do it, £300 per tenant. Or do you want me to manage the household? I'll be cheaper than the estate agent. Or do you want me to manage it, run it on Airbnb because you don't want tenants in your property? There's many different exit strategies. So just because they say no, it's not a dead deal. Hannah, is it better to start in your local area or target higher cash flow areas for SA? The way I teach people is don't do due diligence on areas. Find estate agents that work with company lets. So I've just done a YouTube video, went out yesterday, how to find deals on Rightmove. Go and watch that video and you'll know what I'm talking about. Lauren, how do you build trust with investors when you're deal sourcing and you've got no track record? Be extremely proactive. Be very quick in your responses. Be proactive about reassuring them. Okay, I know I've got absolute 0 history. I appreciate that. I'd be just as cautious as you. How about we hop on a Zoom? I'll answer all of your questions. I'll walk you through the due diligence that I've done. You've got to go above and beyond. You've got no brand. You've got no reputation. So sell yourselves. If you've got a genuine deal and you are firm and you're sold and you believe that it stacks, then showcase that. If I'm going to buy it from you, let's say this is a 1-to-1 Zoom. I'll be like, yeah, Kenny, I know I've got nothing going for me, but I appreciate jumping on the Zoom. I just want to show you why this is a deal and why I think it's worth what I'm selling it for. And you just show everything. Show them everything. Don't obviously give away the property details so they can go and get it, but show them your findings. And if that doesn't do it, then you haven't done a good enough job reassuring them that it's a deal. That's what I would do. Where do we get to? Amar, What's more scalable long term? Building a big HMO portfolio or scaling service accommodation? I think it's shifted with the renters' rights being changed. I think a big HMO portfolio is at risk. And the reason why I say that is because the winter season for HMO very much exists. It's like the low season for HMO. If a tenant moves out at the end of November, you're really going to struggle to fill those rooms until April, right? And tenants can give 2 months notice at any point. At any point. So that's a risk with a big HMO portfolio, is if you've got like 10, 15, 20 properties, you're going to struggle in winter. There's no, before you could have a 6-month contract and you just align the contract so no one ever moves out during those months. Yeah, so I'd say service accommodation is, they've like leveled the playing field. HMO is almost becoming like a service accommodation, but a 2-month kind of guest, right? So you'd have to like interview them. What's your intentions? Do you plan on like just staying for a few months, or are you planning to stay for 6 months plus? Yeah, 6 months plus. Okay, are you sure? Because I really want to... Alexa, stop. I really want a long-term tenant, Wow, we only got to 14 questions answered. 35 on the list. Okay, we'll cover a few more. Have we got any in the chat? No. All good. Okay. Jason, how do you structure your offer to landlords so they feel protected and not exposed to risk? It's a template we have. If you want the offer template, just DM me. I'll happily send you the offer template. But yeah, it's quite clever. It's structured like a shit sandwich, right? So you got good, you got bad, you got good. So the good is solving their problems. The bad is you want a month rent free, and I want this doing, and then you finalize it with, again, showcasing them what you can do for them. But yeah, it's quite technical or tactical. Connor, can you explain the difference between management agreements and guaranteed rent in simple terms? Simple terms. So if you are the landlord, I'm like, I am going to manage your property. You own all of the risk. I pay for nothing. You pay for everything. I just manage it for you. I take 20%. You get the rest. Rent to rent is, I'm going to rent your property. I own all of the risk because I have to pay you rent. I have all of the expenses. I have to make this work. With management, it's like you could just chill and do nothing and be a crap manager, bring in no revenue, and you make no loss, right? But you'll lose that landlord. So yeah, hopefully that explains it. We'll get to 20 questions, so we're on 19. What systems do you put in place? So this is from Natalie. What systems do you put in place early so you don't burn out managing multiple properties? The biggest tip, business WhatsApp, because you can automate replies after 5 p.m. Yeah. Simple as that. So if you're running a HMO business and tenants message you after 5 p.m, they get hit with an automated response. For emergencies only, email. And yeah, don't set up group chats either, like household chats, because they treat it like a household chat. So don't do that. Keep everybody on an individual. I wouldn't even give out my mobile number. Just tenants, just email. That's it. Last but not least, Rob, is it better to master one model first or do HMO, SA and deal sourcing all at once? So yeah, it's called focus. Follow one course until successful. You need tunnel vision, no distractions, because you might do this for 2 months and you'll see everybody showcases how good and easy things are and their massive success online. And you're going against like rejection and struggle. That's the normal one. What you see online isn't normal. So everybody quickly changes tactic because they see like, there's deal sources, they're killing it. Social housing, they're doing so well. No. And then 6 months has passed and you've done nothing. So shut out all distractions, tunnel vision. Every single strategy works. You just have to put in the work consistently. That's it. And you'll see results. So yeah, focus on one model. That's it. So if you're doing deal sourcing, focus on one of the strategies to sell that deal. This is the biggest issue I see. Deal sourcing isn't its own strategy. You have to master the strategy of the deal you're selling. So if it's an Airbnb deal, you need to master the service accommodation due diligence and finding the properties to know how to stack that deal, to make the offer, to have it accepted, to sell it. It's not just you become a deal sourcer and you can sell deals. It's you have to master the strategy to sell that deal. So that's what confuses me with a lot of people online. It's like, yeah, I'm doing deal sourcing. Okay, what strategy are you focusing on? Deal sourcing. Okay, so what deals are you selling? All of them. Okay, good luck. Cool. All right, guys, I got to shoot. Every minute of today is allocated. So, yeah. All right, take care. Hopefully that helped. Send me a DM with your questions and I'll add it to the ever-growing list. Take care.